Welcome back. We are here for the Between Dancing on Strings, episode 10. We have a couple of masks that are still owed, so if our players have that ready to go, that would be great. I'd love to have them as prologue before we get play started in earnest. Maribel's player is not available this evening. Heading to Big Bad Con, so safe travels to her, and we will see her next time. All right, so whomever wants to get started on their mask,
Yeah, I can go.
just remember to read the prompt before narrating.
Yeah, this is a Mask of the Past, and the prompt says, narrate a flashback to your young adulthood that shows the first time you met the artist who fell in love with you. And so the scene opens on a craggy cliff face lit by mid-morning sun. It's warm and punctuated. The face of the cliff is punctuated by a number of well-tended cave openings. And we can smell acrid smoke somewhere out of sight, of fires burning, sort of wafting through the air, the aroma of roasting meat. We see individuals making their way in or out of the cave mouths, bearing water or hoisting baskets. Some are tacking up hides to dry in the sun. And as time passes, seeing many making their ways in and out here and there, we get the impression that the openings visible to us give entry to what must be a fairly large system of interconnected caves. I was going to try to be a little oblique about this, but I think I'll just make it explicit. The inhabitants of this settlement are Neanderthal people. And kneeling some distance away from the cliff face is a young male looking just out of adolescence. His face is quite long in relation to his forehead and brow, and we see on it a look of deep concentration. And spread out before him is a large, beautifully preserved hide, smooth and supple, and it's such a dark shade of brown it nearly looks black. And from a small hide pouch, the youth pours a fine, thin, powdery layer of red ochre smoothly across the width of the hide. And as he sets the pouch aside, we can see his hands. They're enormous, strong-looking, thick-fingered, with big bony knuckles. But their movements are surprisingly delicate and precise. And using the index finger of his right hand, the young fellow quickly and quite clearly sketches the form of a bear, using just a few lines. It's the creature sort of rearing up on its hind legs, seemingly poised to strike. And we see a look of satisfaction flash across the artist's face. But then the wind kicks up suddenly, and the drawing vanishes as all the ochre is blown away. And crestfallen, the young man swings his face back against the wind, almost as if to curse it. And coming over the crest of a small hill, he and we see the familiar form of the entity we know as Kemuel Robel, looking much as they do now, perhaps a bit younger. They're walking slowly forward. They're completely poised and calm and collected. They are absolutely naked and literally covered from head to toe in dried blood and ash. And they stroll closer, approaching, and the young artist rises and speaks, puzzled, perhaps a little shaken. Hello, and welcome. The language he speaks is not English, but nevertheless, we can understand it. And it appears so can Kemuel. We see them cock their head to the side, as we've seen so many times before, staring still, calm, but curious, interested. And the youth speaks again. What exactly are you? I've never seen anything like you before. And a long moment passes, and Kemuel is still staring, and then speaks. And the language that leaves their mouth is altogether different from the young man's. It's somehow soft and sharp at the same time, rasping but melodious, laden with sibilance. And yet Kemuel is understood. You would not have seen our like before. We are singular. That is a lovely hide. Do you think it could be made to fit us? As Kemuel waits, expecting an answer, the scene fades away.
All right, how do I follow that one? I will take you to the other end of time for Val's Mask of the Future. Narrate a future in which you return to your ancestral estates and claim your right. Do you sell them, establish a museum, or something else? What year is it? Take a keepsake, ask another hunter what it is, and then add it to your personal quarters. We see a sunny autumn day. A woman in high-waisted slacks and a short, rather military-style jacket. She's neither particularly short nor particularly tall. A lock of thick blonde hair curls by her ear below a wide hat that shades her soft dark eyes. A green silk scarf is wound around her neck. She waves as a car, a Rolls-Royce Phantom 2, pulls up, tires crunching on gravel. Before the driver can reach the rear passenger door to open it, the occupant opens it themselves and steps out. A red-headed woman in a wool skirt and sweater. Izzy, you came. The two women embrace. Val, I can't believe this. I always knew you were a little bit posh, but this? I should have made you pay for the drinks more often. She catches sight of the scarf. Is that the scarf I lent you that night? Val laughs. Oh, I've missed you, Izzy. Come on, let me show you around. There is a bustle of activity around what looks like a once grand stately home. Workmen are up on scaffolding. A horse is pulling a load of tiles up to the roof. Is this really all yours, Val? It's in the family. I'm rather an old and disregarded branch, but you know how the world is changing. The Duke is hard up for cash, and well, I thought I should rescue the place. If I can hire a few men from the village on, it seems the least I can do. A lot of people around here have fathers who never came back from France, or couldn't work anymore when they did, and it's my duty to do what I can. There will need to be staff to run the place once it's all fixed up as well. Isabel pokes Val sharply with her elbow, a look of mock outrage on her face. Servants, Val, really? Oh, Izzy, no, I don't mean everyone knowing their place and doffing their caps to me. I know you don't hold with that kind of thing. But I can't manage this all alone, and besides, it's about the history. I don't think I'll live in the main house myself. They keep walking toward the side of the house where we can see a run-down walled garden. More men are busy planting and pruning. Look, while I'm making plans, well, there's a groundskeeper's cottage down by the lower gate. It's not in such terrible shape. I need somewhere to stay while all this, she gestures at the work going on. And a little bird told me the local school is looking for a teacher. I thought you and I, well, we might. She takes Isabel's hand and they round the corner, stops and looks into her eyes. I can just picture you in overalls with a paintbrush and me tending to the little kitchen garden. Isabel blushes and lowers her eyes. I don't know, Val, this is a lot to take in. Since when did Isabel Russell think twice before dashing off on an adventure? Isabel looks down. It's a lovely dream, Val, and it's so good to see you again, but I don't know, I can't. We cut. It's now a winter morning. We see a car pull up to the estate, and Isabel gets out. I'm sorry, just a moment, she says to the driver. She walks over to look through the wrought iron lower gate at the groundskeeper's cottage and the main house beyond. It sits empty, scaffolding still in place, half-finished work abandoned. I don't think anyone's home, comes a voice. Isabel turns and sees a boy on a bicycle, a heavy bag of newspapers threatening to tip him over. Oh, you startled me, she says, dabbing her eye with a handkerchief. There's still someone living here, though. I don't think so, miss. I don't know why I still have to come out here. Papers have been piling up for weeks now, but Mr. Drake at the shop says I still have to deliver them while the account isn't behind. Oh, she seems taken off guard but tries to hide it. What's on the front page today? Anything exciting? The boy hands Isabel a paper and we see the date, January 31st, 1933. The headline is about the new chancellor that has just been elected in Germany.
So, we step into dusk phase.
I'm supposed to ask for a personal quarters item, I forgot.
Who are you supposed to ask it of?
I can choose, and I think Jeremy did the last one, so I'll ask Mark to do this one. A keepsake from that time.
Okay.
Oh boy, I think.
Take some time to think about it.
Yeah, I have an immediate idea, and I'm just not sure whether it's a good idea or not.
We love bad ideas around here.
I think that you have that new Chancellor of Germany wrote a sort of autobiographical manifesto some years earlier. And I think for whatever reason, you have that in your personal quarters.
I definitely don't want that to fall into like Admiral Flagg's hands.
Sorry. All right, so anything that needs to be resolved in dusk phase for anyone. Does anybody have a dusk-driven playbook move? Doesn't look like it. Paint the scene. Let's pick a room at Hargrave House for us. Let's do the trophy room today. The trophy room. There were hunters living in Hargrave House before you. Trophies from their encounters with the supernatural can be found here. Describe one. And please go ahead and put your descriptions in the Rooms of Hargrave House tab. You can always call back to them later. What kind of trophies are found in the trophy room?
We see framed on the wall in what looks like a picture frame until you look closer and see that it's a little deeper than a picture. Not terribly deep, but a few inches. What looks at first glance like an arrangement of teeth in a grin. Below it is a little brass plaque. It says, "The smile of the Cheshire Cat."
There is on the floor of this room, a rug from the hide of an animal that is too big for the space. The fur rug, which has been trimmed down much shorter than it normally would have, but you can still tell that the hair is long on the paws and on the head. But the rug is so large that in one end of the room it's rolled up. And so we only see about a quarter, maybe less, of this animal.
On a shelf across the room, there's a tiny plaque with what, from the distance across the room, would look like maybe a small statue or figurine. But when one approaches it closely, they can see a sort of, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 inch tall figure with a blue dress. And looking very closely, we see that it's not a figurine or a statue at all, but it's a tiny, human-looking, but tiny skeleton wearing this blue dress, and coming from the back, almost transparent, almost invisible, really, there's these tiny gossamer wings.
Oh, just for funsies, I will add one. I think in the back of the room, perhaps behind some bric-a-brac, there is a mirror. Innocuous. A hideous frame, though. The frame is strangely ornate, but you can't quite tell what the design is until you get up close. Gives a sense of something worm-like, something uncomfortable and disturbing. But the mirror is just a mirror until you look inside and realize that all it gives you is darkness. You have the opportunity to watch the play, the King in Shadows play, at this point for night phase. Yeah, so this will mark off another night phase for King in Shadows once this is completed. And then you will only have 2 more night phases remaining before the King in Shadows will hold sway over all, whatever that will end up meaning. So, yeah, there's a bit of a time crunch here, so just remember that. Okay.
We answered
Yes.
the first question, right?
Correct. And that's why you're able to watch the performance for this particular night phase. So,
Yeah, I'm just wondering
remember,
because it wasn't checked off, but I see you've just done it.
just remember that you're going to be able to watch it from any mirror, essentially, from what you had answered from last session. So you can answer it from any mirror, but like the resolution would be from Parliament, because that's where the play is actually being held currently. All right. So each of you will say what your hunter will be doing during the upcoming night phase. Again, you have the King in Shadows play that you could conceivably watch from any mirror in the foyer from Hargrave House or elsewhere. And then there's also the Emerald Orchid threat that was introduced last time that you could investigate. Several different locations were mentioned last time associated with the Emerald Orchid, and I'm happy to review some of those locations again if you want to investigate. So let me go in order of the character keeper. Kemuel, you were busy or getting busy from last time, so at least that's what we said fictionally, which is why Kemuel was busy. What would you like to do for night phase?
If we are going to watch the King in Shadows, I think they would be inclined to do that.
Okay.
Uh,
Out of character, did you have a chance to do at least a rewatch of the
Yeah,
last
I
few
did.
minutes?
I
Good,
did.
good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So are you going to be watching from Hargrave House, or are you going to be watching from elsewhere? I mean, that's really up to you.
Yeah, I guess I would see what the others' plans are, and then kind of base it off of that, I suppose.
Okay. But you will be watching The King in Shadows.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. Daymond, where you want to go, or what do you want to do?
It feels disingenuous to go to the gardens without our most beloved. So we will make do with the second most beloved and join Kemuel probably in the sitting room with a large mirror to observe the King in Shadows.
It's the watch party at Hargrave House. Sorry. Sure. Val, where are you going?
I have a hankering to actually go and watch the play in Parliament.
Interesting. All right, we can totally do that. No outstanding Janus masks, and then let's go right to the unseen. So let's see. The unseen that I've picked for this evening, coincidentally enough, kind of fits to have an evening promenade in Covent Garden before the show. All right. So, Covent Garden houses a large market selling mostly fruit, vegetables, and fresh flowers, recently covered by a new market building. While most of the stalls have packed up by the time dusk falls, the area is still abuzz with visitors. Both the Royal Opera House and the Theatre Royal can be found here. And while it has cleaned up its image a little, it still has a reputation for hosting ladies of the evening. Paint the scene, of course, is everyone for the first prompt. Let's see. Prompt 2. Let's go ahead and do Mark. Prompt 3, let's do Jeremy. Prompt 4, let's do Rob. Whoops, Rob. There we go. Okay, so we're all set for the unseen. Paint the scene for Covent Garden, the evening promenade. As crowds gather for evening performances and market porters clear down stalls, describe how this place is a crossroads for all strata of London society. And please remember, you are trying to do an echo of the night. You're trying to thematically tie in your responses, your narration to Hunter's scenes and vice versa for your unseens. And because King in Shadows is still in play, how does reality subtly distort in the background for every single prompt of the unseen?
Tonight, unlike most other nights, the streets aren't as crowded. It seems that for some reason, most people are staying in. But those that have come out arrive at Covent Garden in all manner of sorts. The poorest walk on their hands. The wealthiest come in carrying horses and their carriages on their backs. One unfortunate person closely related to the Queen or Parliament is forced to tug and drag his boat down the street to the gardens.
I think we can see in a corner, maybe behind a stall, you can see the vendor sort of washing the counter from which they sell their wares. And back behind the stall, like near a gutter, there's like maybe some coal scuttle or some ash that's been dumped out. And we see two little ragamuffin children kneeling down, and they're using their fingers. They're playing a game of tic-tac-toe in the ash. And sort of taunting each other. I'm going to get you on this one. And they're very, although the stakes of the game would seemingly be very low, they're very committed to it. And just as the young boy Chip, we'll say his name is about to place the penultimate letter, a huge splash of water enters the frame and knocks their ashy tic-tac-toe game away and splashes them. And we can see that the man who was washing his stall has tossed the bucket out behind him, ruining their game. And the two boys shout some epithets at him and stomp in the puddle, spewing the ashy water onto a very well-dressed gentleman who is, for some reason, wearing a light gray evening suit. And now it's all spattered with ashy water. And he shouts at the boys as they run away. And for just a moment, the man's face is the face of a demon with fangs, glowing red horns curving up. And then he turns, brushing himself off, completely normal.
On one of the roads leading down to Covent Garden is a traditional spot for street performers. Quite often living statues, people painted in paint that resembles either metal or stone, who perform for the entertainment of passers-by. But this evening, as we see this spot, while the performers are standing stock still impersonating statues, it is the passers-by who are painted head to toe in bronze or stone.
Kemuel and Daymond, you find yourselves at Hargrave House, and perhaps, Kemuel, do you invite Hattie to join you two, or does she remain in her lab quarters at Hargrave House, unless you invite her?
Yeah, I think that given that this is an evening of theater, they would probably have invited Hetty to attend as well.
Okay. So, if it is the case that you are in the sitting room and there's like a mirror configuration, or you just bring in a bunch of mirrors from all over the house to just kind of create this panoramic view or what have you. Yes, it's like, it's almost as if it's creating this pre-show where you can hear as if there's like an orchestra tuning, and like you see like the stage. It's dim, but it almost has the footlights, like where they're like, you're starting to see them lit, and it's like it's as if like, the show will begin soon. You don't see a placard or anything like that come up, but I mean, it's like it just gives you that pre-show kind of state. And Val, it's like perhaps you're making your way over to Parliament, and somehow it's like, you just get this sense of something will be starting very soon. You don't know how. I mean, it's not like it's lit up any differently, but you just have this sense of anticipation, as if once you get in there, you know that there will be something that will happen. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when you get into Parliament proper, in general, it's a big room with like seats, uncomfortable looking seats that are kind of like in a box configuration, kind of like all in rows, but like kind of facing each other. Um, that is not the case anymore. Somehow the configuration has changed. It gives the sense of they're all facing the same direction, which is towards one wall, and the wall is covered over in black velvet. And there are footlights. There are spotlights coming from someplace, and they are all directed towards the stage. And you do hear the distant sound of some kind of orchestra that is tuning. And when you get there, Val, the velvet parts. It's as if it is waiting, or it was waiting for you to get there. There are people here. There are people here at Parliament, in the seats, watching, in shadow, in hooded cloaks, just with bated breath, watching and waiting. And those of you in the sitting room at Hargrave House, or in their own foyers, in their own households, all you see are the the velvet curtains part, and Act 1 shows something normal, somewhat normal, a day-to-day life of a female protagonist identified as the journeywoman, ending when the journeywoman receiving news that her 3 immediate family members, a mother, father, and brother, have all been killed in a bizarre fishing accident. Paint the scene. The play features a Greek-style chorus that collectively narrates much of the story. What sort of masks do they wear, and why do they feel out of place?
Of course, at least the 3 members standing in front are wearing realistic masks of the actors that played our protagonist's family. They have various injuries across both their faces and their bodies, consistent as if these 3 members of the chorus were killed in the same manner of the family members.
One of the chorus, standing in the back in the shadows, has a mask that looks like it is made from kind of polished and painted porcelain with bright blue eyes. And I think as Kemuel and Daymond catch a glimpse of this, they realize that the mask is the face of Maribel.
And there is another member of the chorus who seems to kind of weave in and out amidst the other chorus players, making their way to one side of the stage and to the other. And they have this large, bizarre mask resting on their shoulders, completely covering where a head would be. And I'm not sure how much sense it might make to those viewing it of the era. But to us, we see the shape of a motion picture camera with the lens out front and a large sort of canister along the side, and perhaps even a crank that the player is turning.
Mark, a young girl sells bouquets outside the flower hall, made up from the leftovers of the day's trade. Who comes to her to buy, and who are they taking the flowers to? And don't forget, please mention how does reality subtly distort in the background.
I think as this young girl is plying her flowers, we see hurriedly stepping up to her that same man that we saw earlier, who had been splashed by the ashy water, but now in a fresh, unsullied, pale gray suit with a pale gray top hat, pale gray gloves. And he steps forward and, young lady, I'm in quite a hurry. I will buy the whole lot from you. Just name your price. I have to be off meeting my dear friend Periwinkle to take in a show. And she's so taken aback that she almost neglects to name an obscenely high price. Almost. But she quotes him a price that to her changes the course of her day. To the gentleman means nothing. And as she hands him the whole big bundle of flowers, and he takes them in his arms, for a moment we see these sort of glowing green tendrils emerging from the basket, wrapping around the man, weaving into his mouth and ears and creeping into his eye sockets. And he makes as though to scream, and then shakes his head, and that's gone. He's just walking off to meet this friend of his, Periwinkle.
Val, as you're there and looking out, possibly like, at the shadowed audience, they are, for the most part, looking raptly on at the performance. And you can tell who's been there more than once to watch the play, who are essentially standing the play and have been to multiple performances, because the reason that a lot of them are hooded is because peeking underneath the hood are the misshapen faces, just like Larkin Creel, who has the sock and buskin mask from watching the play too many times. So too are some of these faces changed and disfigured. And they have put on these hoods to disguise themselves, but they are leaning over their seats, raptly looking and watching this play, almost drooling in their fanaticism, gibbering amongst themselves about how they're excitedly watching. As Act 2 begins, and those of you watching from home are seeing this considerably more strange act. This is depicting the journeywoman's travels to the underworld with a character they call the boatman. They are seeking to find the court of the occluded king in order to petition him for the release of her family members from his shadowy realm. First, it looks like they are doing a kind of pantomime, as if they are getting into a boat. They are pretending to row down the pretend river Styx, or pretend river Lethe, to make it down into the underworld. But then something strange happens. You see it too, Val, even being there live. You see the shimmer of waters. You see a boat appearing out of nowhere that they actually step into and ride. As they do row down a river. Paint the scene. What strange vistas are displayed in the backdrop during the journeywoman's travels through the underworld?
She travels through depictions of Dante's Inferno, the circles of hell, only she travels in reverse order, as if coming up out of hell, that the world she inhabited when alive is the deepest and the worst punishment that a soul can receive.
As the boat proceeds down the river, there's just a hint visible on the corners of the stage of red coloured canyon walls rising on either side of the water.
I think as those Red Canyon walls recede from view, it's just very dark, pitch black, almost as though it's just a void. And then at the fringes, we see closing in the long fangs of what must be this gaping maw of some sort of leviathan creature threatening to swallow the bolt whole.
I think as the boat makes its travel through this Leviathan maw, the Greek chorus that is ever present, their piping starts to sound more bizarre, more bird-like, as if the whippoorwills are piping and becoming more frenetic and frantic. Legend says that the whippoorwills will pipe to the beat of a dying man. They are piping ever faster, as if there is someone dying as they enter in the maw. Jeremy, what scenes of high drama do we see play out on the stage of the Royal Opera House, and how do we see these same tragedies and romances play out on the street outside? And keeping in mind the King in Shadows, how does reality subtly distort in the background?
We see on the stage to an audience that is not quite fully paying attention. What should be a climactic scene is almost disregarded by those onlooking as a noble lady, clad in resplendent garb, takes a glove and slaps one of her suitors, calling him a man whore for suggesting that the two were to date, or that he could stand a chance of courting her. And as the curtain falls for intermission, the camera would turn, showing us the audience as they stand to make way for snack and drink. And we can see that everyone in the audience has the sock and buskin as a face. Outside, we see a very different scene. A noble gentleman in resplendent garb puts back on his fancy riding gloves as he mounts on a horse with a young lady in tow after successfully courting her. The two ride off down the street.
Act 3. Utterly bizarre, difficult to follow. Val, you're there in person and you're even having trouble trying to figure out what the hell is going on. To large portions of the audience, some of them, the ones that aren't quite so strange looking, and obviously have only seen this the once, or maybe this is the first time, they've walked out in the middle of it, thinking this completely insufferable. Those, again, that are fanatic and frenetic about it are still there, drooling over its brilliance, and some perhaps have too close to you, Val, have clutched at you and are gushing about its success. The bulk of this act involves the introduction of the three courtiers of the occluded king, the Duchess, the Prince, and the Knave. Some of these audience members are getting a little too excited, perhaps. Clutching at you a little bit too desperately, a little bit too excitedly. It's wonderful, isn't it? Brilliant, even. Don't you agree?
It is most interesting, yes. If you'll excuse me for a moment.
No, no, no. Sit, sit, sit. You must also enjoy. You have a close seat here. Where do you need to go? You need to just sit, sit, sit. Enjoy this with us. Please, please, please.
There are.
I am tempted to try something here, if
Okay.
I may.
If you attempt to try and get away from all of the audience members around you, there's it's basically like grasping hands. You know, there's sufficient enough numbers to keep you tamped down to sit there for the rest of the play. So, you know.
Well, I have an idea about that.
Okay.
I think before they arrived here, Val slipped into the surf of time and may actually be here twice.
Oh no. Okay.
Once backstage,
Ah.
once in the audience as a cover or a alibi, and once backstage to do some investigating.
Perfect. Okay.
But I have to roll composure to see if that actually works.
All right. Well, give me the roll for your move.
Okay. Oh, that's a. I don't know what my composure is off the top of my head, but it's 9 on the dice. I'm sure my composure is at least 1, so that's going to be a. Oh, that's an 11 total.
All right. And what's the move called?
Amor Fati, Love of Fate. So,
Perfect. All right. So just tell me how you
travel into
succeed.
Yeah, I travel into the past. Or I think this is something that Val has done before arriving at Parliament.
Okay.
So they entered twice.
Okay.
And according to the move, the table can hold 3, and any hunter can explain and spend 1 to explain how Val's actions in the past affect the present for better or ill, and mark
Okay.
1 XP.
Okay.
And then I can choose effects. The one I'm interested in is simply you may act in 2 places at once, which will allow me to be simultaneously in the audience and backstage.
Okay. Well, the one backstage can totally investigate and information move if you want. The one that's in the audience, however, has to roll for night move because it's like these audience members are a bit mad, to say the least.
Yes. Okay. What am I rolling with? And do any of my conditions apply?
So for
I
these,
should have asked that before the last thing as well.
whoops. So for the audience members that are like, you know, trying to grasp you and hold on to you, I'd say like it's vitality or composure if you're trying to be more agile to try to like, you know, dodge willy-nilly out of their grasp, basically.
I think what Val is doing is trying to put on an air of being as bound up in the play as they are.
Okay,
That
so
they
faking their way
that
through
they
it.
are wrapped in attention to the play and just as drawn into it as these mad audience members.
So are you parlaying a good stat? Because I mean, I would call that presence. You
Yeah,
tell
my
me
best stat is actually vitality, but just picturing what I'm doing, yeah, presence seems reasonable.
whichever you want
Am
to.
I?
You parlay
Am
you.
I? Yeah, no, presence makes sense because that's narratively what I'm attempting to do.
Okay.
What about conditions? Am
Oh,
I affected in any way?
let me see. Way to the shadows. You know what? I mean, I'm gonna say that in this case, like Weight of the Shadows is like actually helping you because like you're in it. So, I'm not gonna hold that against you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So presence is 1.
Okay.
I just rolled snake eyes on the dice, so that's 3.
So much for convincing them. That's hilarious. Before I make that part of you suffer, did you want to roll investigation on your backstage part persona?
Sure, yeah, I think what Val is doing there is they're trying to get an idea of like who's running this play, who are the stagehands, who are the theatre manager, kind of ordering people around, and can they get a glimpse of any faces or anything like that, or obviously if there's any items that might be of interest.
Yep. Go for it.
Is that is that like reason
Yes.
and conditions?
Same deal. I'm not holding that against you because you're in the middle of it right now.
Okay. Reason is my worst stat, but that's a 9.
Okay. Better than snake eyes. Okay.
Sure is.
Let's see. Oh, making this way too hard. Okay, got it. All right. You are now. Would you say that these time slips of yourself, like they're actually real? Like, or are they phase structures of yourself? The reason I'm asking is like, would you
I think they
see
are.
things more as like, kind of like in in passing, or would you see things as actual physical objects?
I think I'm picturing this quite literally. Yeah, it's like not obviously with the comedic intent, but the end of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, where they literally like go back in time and kind of put props in the way and set things up so that they succeed
Yeah.
in what they're trying to do on the next day, as it were. I forget now; it's years since I saw that movie, but yeah, I think Val is quite literally there.
Okay. All right. So, but it's real. It's real things.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just
Yeah,
want to
I'm
make
not.
sure.
I'm not in
Yeah.
some kind of ghostly apparition,
Okay.
if that's what you're asking. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm asking because I mean, like these,
Yeah.
like I want these to be real things that you find. Because the reason I'm asking is because what you find, you see all sorts of different things like in the backstage. Because this is not just set dressing. Somehow they are able to these shadowy people, like dressed in like shadowy costumes, like all in masks and everything. You don't see like just a singular like plain person here. Like these are people like giving off serious vibes here, and they are all about the serious business of having this production be quite supernatural, but also very dramatic and a professional, like like effects and everything, but also very real. Um, there is all these different props, but also with the sense that they are very occult based. And what you do find is you find a striking costume crown dripping. Why am I typing this? Because I'm making things hard on myself. With blood and black ichor. Yeah. And you can literally touch it because it is that striking. It's an ornate crown that looks like it's literally bleeding. Bleeding these substances. And I think that's where you hear your other self screaming, right? Because that's where bad shit's happening right now. But I'm going to cut over to the other two because here at Hargrave House, while you two are watching in the sitting room, I'm going to say during the first two acts, things have been happening in the house. The house is big. The house is bigger than anybody suspects, you know, looks bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. And one of the things that happens is that, like, you know, there are things that are all over the place. So while you two are watching, there are things happening in a particular broom closet. We see, oh, I don't know, vines peeking out from underneath a door. And by the third act, it's like, you know, there's a vine that has kind of snuck up underneath and then has clicked open a doorknob and then, like, has released a plant. It's all good. It's all good. So, yeah. I mean, you hear a crash before the third act. Well, yeah. Before for you two, before the third act starts, it's like you hear a crash out in the hall. And yeah. If you go to investigate, it's like, you know, there's the hall door is open. Daymond, did you and Maribel happen to tell Kemuel what was in that hall closet?
No, because that would have led to intrigue, and we wanted the hall closet to be as unbeautiful as possible.
You see the swept up remains of glass and glass shards and, like, dust, you know, glass dust, and possibly like emerald dust and dirt. And that's it.
Well, that's not good.
Someone
Just go.
left quite a mess.
I'll take care of it for you, Kemuel. No need to worry.
We weren't going to offer.
And David will grab a broom and dustpan, sweep up the remains, and place them gingerly, lovingly, without any hint of malice, into the fire.
Kemuel, what's that glow coming from that room? Down the hall, there is a door that seems to have a particularly verdant glow coming from behind it. Hattie's just calling attention to it, Kemuel.
Oh, interesting. Perhaps we ought to go take a look.
Do you know where that leads?
We're not entirely sure. But there's an elementary way to find out. And they begin walking towards that door. And seeing the glow, open it up to see where it leads and what is inside.
'Tis the basement of Hargrave House. There is a glow coming from downstairs. It's a pretty green.
Seeing
Pretty glow. Pretty glow. Dank basement. Ah.
Have you ever seen such a beautiful green before?
It is quite singular, isn't it, Teddy? Do you think we ought to take a closer look? Or were you enjoying the play?
To be honest, I didn't quite understand it.
It's a bit tedious, wasn't it?
Yes. But this is something that happens every night for several nights, isn't it?
The play, it has been going on for some time, yes, for a few nights, I believe.
We will have another opportunity to watch it then.
I can't imagine that we would not.
I feel we could see what this glow is about, yes?
Quite. Does it remind you of any of the colors you saw on the island?
It is a new color.
Ah, not familiar then. Not even those colors you might have seen through the rift.
I think as you're looking into her eyes, like, she starts to have, like, starts to reflect the glow of this color. But then, like, there's, like, this kind of, like, a, um, what do they call it? Heratochromia kind of happening. Like, where it looks like, one eye is a different color than the other. Like, even behind her veil. And then, like, she just kind of, like, says in an even wispier voice than her normal,
I think I see a different color. I think it could show us something. I think we should go see.
Let us examine this color. And Kemuel will step to the floor, beginning to make his way down the steps of the basement.
so Daymond, you could let them go down the stairs, or you could not. That is up to you. Before I head back to Val and see how Val deals with the failure.
Personally, I'm curious as to what Kemuel will do with the plant, but Daymond, especially especially at the request of Maribel, will at least attempt to warn Kemuel what is down there. That it is a being, that it is something, a being with enough charismatic pull to potentially rival you, enough psychic occultness to rival myself, the strength to overpower Maribel, and probably something that relates to Val, but that's unimportant. It is not something to be trifled with. It was given to Maribel as a gift, and we had trouble containing it yesterday, or this morning.
We are quite fond of gifts. But a rival, you say? A rival. Is it? And I think they touch Hetty on the shoulder. Is it a danger to Madame Helmley?
It is a danger to us all. I do not believe you, your followers, or myself are exempt from that.
Madame Helmley is ours.
Would you
She
like
does not belong to a rival. She will not belong to a rival.
Would you like me to go first to ensure that it is safe for your precious?
Keep her safe, Mr. Gray. And Kemuel will take a step backwards and slam the basement door shut, like with him on the other side, with them on the other side of it.
Wait, what?
So Kemuel steps back into the basement, telling Mr. Gray to keep Hetty safe, and closes the door to bar their way.
So he's in the basement and then he keeps them. Oh,
Right.
that's hilarious. Amazing. Amazing. Okay. Oh, hey. I'm going to go back to Val. Val, before you got your botch, tell me what your audience, Val, was dealing to get out of this mess before I tell you how badly it goes.
Well, I think Val was just sitting there trying to play along.
Ah.
They knew that this audience was not going to let them leave, not going to let them, I think, presumably hoping that they will suffer the same effects of the other people who have viewed the play too many times. And Val didn't want any part of that. So they were trying to just play along.
Right. I think the strangeness of the King in Shadows, though, was going to create something. I can't remember what Jason called it when okay, now I remember. So how this goes wrong, like with you just trying to go along with it, was each of these audience members around you were going to put their hands on you. Like, just a single hand on a shoulder. And then, like, them getting close to you and then, like, in your face and just saying, no, stay, enjoy the play, and like be very theatrical about it, be very Greek style chorus about it. And then, like, shove their visage into your face, showing you what you could be as part of those so fanatical about the play. And then more hands on you, more in your face they were, until you started to feel the weight of the shadows and of their presences more on you, and then you started to become drowned by their physicality on top, and becoming this gestalt merging into each other on top of you. And then we got like essentially an overhead shot of just your stricken face as you started to become drowned by these people and this thing that became the audience with a capital A. And you became lost as we just watch just your hand become consumed by this creature. Or you could put on a mask.
They will put on a mask.
Okay. So, 7 to 9.
I think I will do a mask of the future, part of the past.
Okay. So, 7 to 9. You hold steady. You convince them that yes, you are here. You are here for the play. You are into the play. They are close to you, but they are not weighting you down with the sense of being upon you. They are just merely fanatically watching with you. I think the complication is that self of you will be pretty much trapped there until the play is completely over. Okay. We're going to wrap up Act 3, and then we're going to take our first break. Okay. So paint the scene on Act 3. In what disturbing or bizarre ways are the three courtiers introduced? The The three courtiers again are the Duchess, the Prince, and the Knave. I'm happy if each one of you want to take one of those courtiers. In what disturbing or bizarre ways are the three courtiers introduced?
If no one minds, I'll do the knave. I think the knave is introduced hanging by his neck from a scaffold, kicking and thrashing, but then he becomes still and begins to speak. And for the remainder of the play, he remains hanging by the neck from a scaffold, but speaking and interacting with other characters as though unaffected, apart from not being able to move.
I'll do the Prince, if that's all right. I think we actually see an audience member sitting close to the stage, pretty rapt with attention, start to cough, and then they cough louder, and then quite loud. It's quite disruptive, and they bring their hands to their mouth, kind of being contorted with these painful coughs. And then we see from between their lips a finger start to protrude outward, and then four fingers and a matching, and the mouth begins to be pulled open and the neck is thrown back and the mouth opens wider and wider until we see the head of a young man emerge, and then the shoulders and the body, as the remains of this audience member falls in a bloody pulp. The Prince presents himself on the stage.
The Duchess walks calmly from off on the side of the stage. We don't hear the clicking of shoes. We instead hear the slapping of feet, bare feet, against wood, wet feet against wood. And as the Duchess makes her way onto the stage, she is nude, sopping wet, not in water, but in the same black ichor of the crown. Every time she takes a step, her bosom jiggles, her ass claps just a little. She is well endowed, beautiful under any other circumstance. And as the limelight hits her, her skin and the black ichor begin to burn. Smoke begins pouring out of her as the ichor becomes a black dress. That when the limelight swings elsewhere, we can see that it is only black under the harshest of lights and is vibrant otherwise.
Rob. In a gin palace later in the evening, sex workers and actors sit side by side, enjoying a drink after a busy night. How do we see the kinship they feel for each other? And, of course, with King in Shadows, how does reality subtly distort in the background?
I think we see a group of actors sitting at a table. The wine and the ale is flowing, and they're enjoying each other's company. They've just finished a performance, not of the King in Shadows, but of something else. And spirits are high. And a pair of women come in and take a place by the bar. And as they do, one of the actors, another young woman, rises and greets them. "Bessie, Nora, come sit with us. And we realize that this actor is sometimes a sex worker herself, and when not successfully employed in the theatre. And as we watch the now slightly larger group sit around the table, the other actors shuffle our chairs around to make space, we can see a man looking in through the window of the pub, a hood across his head and a strange mask in place.
Kemuel, you are you have slammed the door of the basement shut so Daymond and Hattie don't come through. And behind you, or below you, is the enticing glow, emerald glow of that supposed plant, that orchid. Do you continue to go down?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay. I think as you make your way downstairs, down the basement stairs, which they're illuminated now, so they're they're pretty clear, pretty detailed. You can see motes in the air, and they're not of regular dust. It's like they are jewels. They're like as if jewels are like floating on the air, but then they, if you take a really close look at them, it's like they seem to be turning and twisting as if they're alive as you make your way down. They are of an unearthly hue, and they are... When was the last time that Kemuel remembers being drunk?
Being drunk.
Euphoric, even.
Probably drunk, probably never. Euphoric, uh, euphoric probably during the most recent revelry at the Bout Club.
This same or similar type of feeling awakens a strange longing for freedom from the confines of individual personhood. What does that feel like for Kemuel? Do you have a sense of individual personhood? You always use the plural. What does it feel like to be free for Kemuel?
I think for Kemuel, to be free, to be completely free, is what they feel every day. I think that they don't have much sense of individual personhood. At least not the entity that we know as Kemuel. Perhaps somewhere deep down inside their body, though, there is someone for whom that makes them feel both scared and excited.
Kemuel, I want you to roll a night move, please. You will... What are you afraid of will happen if you fail or lose your nerve? In the face of this.
Yes, I think that they would be afraid of their will being overwhelmed or removed entirely. The loss of their will. would be their great fear in this moment.
Yeah. The way that it is worse is this thing that is able to do what you can't, or do it better. It is a parasitic intelligence that is able to not only gain followers, but also pass along its consciousness to everyone. So not only are they able to have worshipers and followers, but also to have everyone be part of them, consume them, and be part of their consciousness. And you will know that when they consume you.
That is
That
worse.
is how it's worse.
It is worse.
So yes, please make the night move with... Yeah. Do you have anything to counteract this thing with sensitivity? This is
So,
pretty damn...
yeah, what I was wondering,
Mhm.
and feel free to veto this.
Yeah.
I was wondering if I could use one of those holds from Rob's move, or from Val's move, possibly.
Which is this? I'm sorry. What am I...
A posteriori, yeah? Or
Oh.
Yeah, it's you're supposed to be able to describe a way in which I changed something for better or worse.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
I think, if that seems kosher, I think as Kemuel makes their way nearing the bottom of the stairs, in front of them, there's like a cord hanging down with a note on it in Valentine's writing, capital letters, that just says, Kemuel, pull this when you see green. And so they cock their head and pull it. And from the ceiling of the basement, maybe that had been up in these sort of canvas, just a rain of sodium chlorate falls down all across the basement floor. This phytotoxic chemical, toxic to green plant parts, crashes in these dusts of powder and just sort of stirs itself up all across the basement.
And what does it do to human skin?
Yeah, it would be pretty unpleasant on human skin as well.
Okay. I will accept that. Oh my god.
Yeah, just change the nature of the night move.
Oh my god, that is amazing. I love it. Holy crap a doodle do. Love it. So basically what you're saying is that negates the need for a night move, yeah?
No, I guess what I'm saying is maybe it changes the nature of the night move.
Okay.
Because Kemuel wouldn't be in so much in danger of becoming part of the plant anymore, as much as in danger of being poisoned by this very toxic herbicide.
Okay. All right. Oh, well, then the different danger then. I mean, basically, then I would say it's like night move. It's like vitality to get the fuck out of there before you get burned to hell.
Yeah. And so in that case, what they're afraid of is, yes, their beautiful visage being dreadfully marred by and possibly permanently disfigured.
Yeah. I mean, like worse is just basically it just becomes a lot more permanent than expected. Interesting. Oh God, I want to make this worse because because she's a chemist, I feel like there has to be some sort of like consequences with Hattie, but I don't know what. Hmm. I know how it's worse. It has to do with Hattie, but I just can't think of exactly how it is. Yeah, something. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. Are any of my 3 conditions affecting this roll?
Holy frick. Give me a second. Let me take a look. Ooh. Ooh. Sally's song. Sally's song is definitely going to give you disadvantage because it has to do with Hattie. So, disadvantage.
All right. I don't think I have anything useful to cancel that out. Actually,
I'm just laughing
wow.
because it's like I'm just loving all the
This
like
is...
but
So I forgot I still have Hattie available to mark in my personal quarters.
yes.
So I would like to mark that
Okay.
as a flashback
Oh.
to earlier.
Yeah.
Kemuel sort of reclining on a sofa,
Uh-huh.
sort of half paying attention, while Hattie is reading from a textbook on inorganic chemistry and the traits of Kemuel doesn't know that it's sodium chlorate, but of this, of this distinct white powder that kills plants. So perhaps that gives them just a bit of a moment's notice to move that much more quickly to get out of Dodge.
Okay. Okay.
Out of the straight roll. Oh boy. Oh, whew. That was with vitality.
Okay.
9.
All right.
Only because of the 3 in vitality.
So yeah, just tell me how you get get out of there just in time to make it out of the basement relatively unscathed.
Yeah, I think we see them making a mad dash up the stairs as this cloud of noxious dust follows them. And they just sort of bodily hurl themselves at the door at the top of the stairs that they had previously barred closed to plow through away from this deadly cloud.
I'd like to think it's at that moment that Daymond opens the door, having secured Hattie elsewhere, and cushions Kemuel's fall.
I feel like you're... Oh, man. Yeah, you still have all those conditions, so thing has to be complication of some sort. Oh, I know. I think even in your mad dash out of the basement, I think there is a complication that what are you wearing? As you
What are they wearing for an evening at the theater? I think,
at
yes, I
home.
think they had been wearing, they're barefoot. They had been wearing this sort of jet black, high-collared robe that fastens with a slit, kind of down the front of the chest, like across, but sleeveless. So their arms are completely bare. And they have a wide-brimmed black hat that we've seen before. So bare arms and bare feet.
I don't think you necessarily noticed as you made your way up the stairs. Maybe a tiny tendril from the orchid, like one of those little, not the branches, what are they called? Shoot. But anyway, like, yeah, one of the little green leaf budlets or whatever was on the stair as you pounded past, and it had actually latched onto your foot. And maybe you didn't even notice, but, you know, microscopically, like, it had hooked into your foot and is binding to your muscle, your skin, and it's remaining there for right now, sprouting some pale shoots. Not sure if you notice it just yet, how sensitive you are, you know, just having gotten away before the chemical could possibly burn your beautiful skin. But yeah, I mean, like, there's a passenger, as tiny as it is, on you. So, duh. We can replace deja vu with plant passenger for right now. Yeah, normally, like, going over the 3 conditions would trigger a mask, but at this point it's like deja vu can go away because this one's too good. And I owe you something, Val, for that 7 to 9 bump up, a complication or what have you. I haven't
Except the
figured it out yet.
complication was me not being able to leave.
That's true. Yeah, there you go. Never mind. We're good. Okay. And then there was one more thing that I had to do to finish this off. Okay. So, courtiers were introduced, and I think the play starts to wind down after the courtiers are introduced. The Greek-style chorus are piping in the background because they introduce the shadowy, over-tall figure of the occluded king. He appears in tattered black robes, a ghost white mask, and a blood-red helm. They start shrieking, the chorus members. They start singing this discordant dirge as the courtiers push the journeywoman towards the king. The lights go out, and when they come back on again, the curtain has been lowered. But Val, as you sit there watching all this go on, and those that are watching through the mirror, I mean, maybe as you come back from your escapades by the basement door, you come back to your seats and you shakily see this as the curtain starts to lower. You notice one very tiny sliver of light as the curtain lowers, and it highlights this particular figure in the back, behind the Greek-style chorus, behind their shrieking piping of this song. You notice there's an articulated doll, and it seems to have the spotlight kind of going over it erratically, but the pattern of its suit looks very familiar to all of you. Goes again. And then it highlights on its hair, on the doll's hair. Doll's hair is white. Highlights on maybe a part of the doll's cheek and chin. You see a dark mustache and goatee. And then just before the curtain completely lowers down, then the spotlight goes full on the face and chest of the doll. And you realize it resembles Daymond Gray before the spotlight winks out and the curtain goes completely down. And that is a mastermind clue. No one takes a bow. No ovations. There are people, maybe a couple of people in the very front of the audience, of the live audience, that actually clap. But then that's it. The ending feels very abrupt and incomplete. Those of you that are watching through the mirror just see a darkened stage with the black velvet curtain feeling like a weighted cloud in the mirror. And Val, I mean, yeah, there's no movement behind the curtain, and the hooded figures and the audience members that are left start to shuffle off and leave. Silent. Strangely silent after all the excitement and freneticism from just a few minutes before. Any parting words or actions before we close out of night phase?
His own sense of curiosity would get the better of him, and Daymond would simply ask Kemuel what happened.
There was a note. There were beautiful green sparkles in the air. And there was a note from Valentine, I believe, by the hand, that said, pull this cord when faced with the green. And so we pulled the cord. And yes, that happened.
Remarkable that Val knew that that was going to happen. And you are unscathed, and you're unscathed, correct?
Do you see anything that mars my imperfection, my perfection?
Do I see anything that mars Kemuel's perfection?
Do you want to do an information move and find out?
Yes, I would. Which stat would you like me to use for this information move?
Do you think you'd see better with your own two eyes or your occult eyes?
I feel that it, given his parasitic green thumb, I feel that it would be impossible for him to not look through that third eye.
Yeah. And that is not, I'm not going to hold that against you because that is actually going to help you. So sensitivity, of course.
That is a 10 on the dot.
Of course. All right. So, pardon. Yeah. Let's see what I can give you for a clue, as well as, of course, you do notice, like, you know, the teensy tiny little thing that is latched onto Kemuel. I think you notice, okay, so you do notice it because of this first. You smell it before you see it. You smell a heady, intoxicating perfume wafting unexpectedly from what starts off as an invisible source, but then you realize it's like it's coming from Kemuel's foot. And it is the very tiny, tiny thing that has latched onto him.
While wafting the scent of Kemuel's apparently intoxicating foot, Daymond will just ask if you've got a new perfume, Kemuel.
Nothing new. Just us.
I don't believe that's the case. I don't believe it's just you in there. There's something else. And forgetting who you are, Daymond will attempt to pick at the piece.
Didn't he slap you down before
Yes,
for doing that?
I'm aware. And Daymond enjoys that.
Oh, that's true. All right.
Just a little.
That kind of relationship. Great. All right.
You've got something on your foot.
Are you quite sure, Mr. Gray? We don't see anything.
Neither do my eyes, but my mind sees it clearly.
It's burrowed in.
Be careful, Kemuel. This plant takes hold, or takes root quickly, and will brandish my green thumb. Have a lovely evening with Hattie. Do be careful.
Good evening, Mr. Gray.
Val, how would you like to leave the the Parliament? Sorry.
I think it's as simple as audience Val, slipping away with the rest of the crowd. Perhaps trying to take note if there are any notable people among the audience that I saw. I mean, members of Parliament presumably would be there, lords. This is extremely dangerous if they're under the influence of the play.
I can't remember whether Kemuel had told you all about the Parliament member that he had tried to kidnap earlier. But yeah, I mean, there's you might recognize, one or two faces, but you're not sure because they're either changed or they have like a full hood on, so you may or may not recognize them. However, there is a person there that you do recognize from earlier. And when I say earlier, I mean from something before. She is in this time, as opposed to a time slip. She's properly dressed for this time period. And she maybe meets you outside of Parliament. Maybe she's underneath a street lamp and looks as if she's just kind of waiting, looking out in the streets, watching all of the passerbys, those that are leaving Parliament, and then kind of turns to look at you as if she's been waiting for you this whole time. Oh, it's you. Do you remember me?
Ree, was it?
Mari.
My apologies.
Did you enjoy the play?
I'm not sure enjoyment is the appropriate response to such a spectacle. Did you observe the play?
Of course.
And what did you make of it?
A play has structure. A play has parts. We all have parts to play.
I believe the bard once put it similarly.
I'm sorry to sound cryptic. There are things that are happening that are part of events that are in, and it's interesting to see how they are connected and put together, just like parts of a play. Sometimes it's hard to see how they make sense when you just look at them piece by piece. And then sometimes you step back, and then she'll actually step back. Sometimes you step back and then see how maybe overall they fit into a story. Do you know how you fit into a story?
I find it is impossible to understand the role of any character in a play until the final curtain falls.
Well,
A good playwright will always subvert our expectations.
and what were your expectations?
If my life had gone according to my expectations, I fear I should have been dead a long time ago.
Well, the world would have been very poor for the for the absence of you.
There are many who might not agree with that assessment, but thank you.
As I said, everyone has a part to play, and everyone plays their part.
But the question remains, who is writing the lines and providing the stage directions?
And then I pose to you, is there only one way to tell a story? Can I walk you home?
That would be delightful.
And she'll present an arm, if you want to walk arm in arm with her,
I will take her on.
as dawn starts to break. Yeah, sorry for that weirdness with night phase. I was just like, okay, let's get watching on the King in Shadows, and then I'm like, oh yeah, we have to do stuff. All right, great. Done. No threat was resolved, but let's answer some Dawn questions. Starting with Kemuel. Hunters answered a question. So we did answer one question, which was like, you have to be able to watch the play. So you can mark that off. Hunters did not resolve a threat. Kemuel, did you experience an echo in the night? Even barely.
Yeah, I think I tried for a couple. The one I remember most immediately was the street urchins playing tic-tac-toe in the ash,
Okay.
and that being splashed away, I meant as an echo of the artist with the red ochre
Okay.
being blown away.
Sure. Did you let someone touch you and then make them pay a price for doing so?
No, Jeremy set me up for that, and it didn't happen. I
Did you
appreciate the effort.
did you secretly show a vulnerable side to someone?
Yeah, because I don't guess that the Emerald Orchid counts as a someone who touched him or touched them, right?
No, not really.
Yeah, so I don't think I satisfied either of those dawn questions.
Got it. Okay. Not today. All right. Daymond. Okay, answer the question. Did you experience an echo in the night?
I don't believe that I did.
I know, it was really tough. I'm so
That's-
sorry.
No, it's perfectly fine.
Did you counsel someone using your supernatural affinities as the basis for that advice?
I was counseled based on the supernatural affinities, but I did not counsel anyone. No.
Okay. Okay. Did you make love to a human in order
Nope.
to forget the darkness?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you for marking off Maribel's answer question. Like, she can take that for next time. All right. And Val, you answered a question. Did not resolve a threat. Did you experience an echo in the night?
I don't think I did. I'm
I
trying to.
know. I made it tough
trying
tonight.
to-
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, yeah. It was difficult to get one in there.
All right. Did you show a clear preference for the past?
I don't think so. Trying to think back to last time. Whether there was anything then, but I don't think so.
For anything that you might have mentioned in like a vulnerable move or anything like that? Do you think? Do you remember?
I don't think I did a vulnerable move last time. Somehow I ended up with 3 conditions at the start of this session, so.
I don't know. Yeah. Did you veer from your vows and punish yourself for it?
Not yet.
Okay. Looking at the move for the move that caused the hold, who marks the XP for it? Is that you or is
Kemuel
that
would.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you for clarifying. Okay. If you have gotten fulfilled your XP track, go ahead and take your advancement, clear your dawn questions, and then change your elective ones if you so choose. Okay. Okay. And nobody. Okay, so I have Mask of the Future for Val. That's Ode.
I'm actually going to do another past after all.
Okay.
Thinking about my ordering of things.
Okay. Hold on. And then. Let's see. Yours was the only big failure, yeah? All right. Do you want to do that now, or did you want to wait till next time to do it?
Whatever you prefer.
I'm okay.
Ready.
I'm okay with either. I mean, if you want to wait to do it to the beginning of next session, I can totally do that.
Yeah, let's do that, and then Amanda will hopefully be back, and
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I can do it then.
All right. So we enter into a quick day phase because I love to introduce new stuff. Let me just see what the. Real quick. All right. So we're down another night phase for King and Shadows. You have a complexity 6 for King and Shadows, and you have 1, 2, 3 clues so far on the board for that you can use. Emerald Orchid, you have a choice of complexity 4, 6, or 8. And you only have 3 clues on the board so far. Okay. And of course, this morning, you have another threat available to you. Among academics, Sir Richard Harlow was a well-regarded, if eccentric scholar of folklore, known for his vivid storytelling and far-fetched theories. To Hargrave House, he was a trusted friend whose expertise in fey lore and magic proved invaluable on numerous occasions. The news of his sudden death comes as a shock. Even more, the manner of his passing. Sir Richard's body was found at his desk, strangely hollowed and preserved, wrapped head to toe in delicate silver thread. What's more, he was set to present a summary of his life's work at the Blue Feather Society, a private salon where curious minds explore the more esoteric subjects not discussed in formal institutions. Sir Richard was convinced that creatures of the Fey realm, or the other crowd, had infiltrated London, and he supposedly had new evidence to support his theory. Ms. Abigail Walker, chair of the Blue Feather Society, reveals that Sir Richard had been courting Hazel Beaumont, a mysterious seamstress whose magnificent fashion designs, and apparently her company, had proved irresistible to a number of London's artistic and academic elite. Each of her other suitors had also vanished, though no bodies have turned up. Daymond, you get this by default. Hargrave House is familiar enough with Fey magic to recognize its manifestations in the manner of Sir Richard's death. How do you know that Miss Beaumont is no human, but a dangerous Fey creature in disguise?
The entire room of his office, a place that many of us from Hargrave House have gone, seeking counsel on the supernatural Fey, has been drained of all color. It is monochromatic. Unlike those men from earlier, there is no vivid splash to distract the eye. The entire room has been drained of color, as if someone drained it by sucking through a straw. Any items removed from the room remain black and white.
Okay. So, this particular threat opens up some questions and opportunities. And like Emerald Orchid, you have a choice of how you want to resolve it. Complexity 4 is, how is the creature ensnaring her victims? Resolve the threat by allowing a hunter to be lured by the seamstress as bait, then capturing or destroying her. A complexity 6 is, what is the creature's true name? Resolve the threat by learning the creature's true name, gaining power over her, and dismantling the binding rituals which sustain her in the human realm. Fey names can take many forms. Ask the players if it's a fleeting series of images, a song or a poem, a word unknown to human tongues, or something else. So it doesn't have to be a name. It can be something, Or, complexity 8, what does the creature truly want? You can resolve the threat by striking a bargain with the creature in accordance with ancient Fey customs. Ask the hunters what it is, or choose from the following. So you have several different things that it could possibly be. You could declare who's under their protection, even suggesting alternative targets, and allow the seamstress to continue her work. You could establish a Fey embassy, helping to integrate with human society. The creature will not kill other humans so long as she is not threatened. You can assist the creature in a ritual that opens a passage back to the Fey realm. She will depart as long as one of the group goes with her, but that is an epilogue where the hunter retires. So those are suggestions, not saying that any of that stuff has to happen, but again, that is something that could possibly happen under the agreement. And as long as the agreement is kept, Hargrave House has access to a custom move known as Draw the Veil. Okay, and that could be part of the reward. So, complexity 4, a complexity 6, or a complexity 8, and I'll put all that stuff into the threat before next time. Okay, and of course, as almost everything else, this has a threat mask, known as the Mask of Glamour. Each hunter will narrate a flashback to a time when they peered through the veil and glimpsed another world beyond this one. This is one of my favorite masks. So, yes, you have several places that you can investigate, several locations. Definitely, you can investigate Sir Richard's flat, as well as, some shops. Miss Beaumont's private workshop, that's definitely one that can also be investigated as well. And the Blue Feather Society was also mentioned. They have a particular, excuse me, salon location that they meet as well. Okay? So, there's still a little bit of time. You can choose to do some, scenes or vulnerable moves if you want to get, one or two scenes started. And then we can go into, excuse me, Stars and Wishes. And then we will continue on with Day Phase for next time. Whatever you guys would like to do. Because, yes, everyone has lots of conditions. Yay.
Yeah, I'm loaded up. I would love to do a vulnerable move with somebody.
Probably good to get started. Definitely get the jump on conditions, as soon as possible. So, who do you want to have a scene with? Again, one vice in play. So,
I think I've done scenes with my vice quite a lot of times recently, so maybe someone else can choose.
Well, would you like to go to Sunday morning mass or comfort the dying?
Ooh. Mhm. Both, but I think maybe Sunday morning mass could be interesting. If that's okay with Kemuel.
whomsoever's vice, go ahead and set it up.
I think all the other times we've done Sunday morning mass, it's been on the walk back.
Mm.
I think this Sunday there's a bit of tea and some cookies afterwards, set up by one of the ladies' groups, raising money for the less privileged. So we'd probably find ourselves in one of the side rooms of the cathedral. Bibles in tow, tea and small cookies in a quiet corner. It was nice of you to join today.
What the Maribel described her experience in the church, I felt I had to see for myself.
You
I
mean
confess I'm sorry.
you mean to say that you wanted to make sure I wasn't corrupting our young Maribel with a church not dedicated to your God?
I'm not sure how you presume to know what God I might worship, Mr. Gray.
My apologies. I simply made the assumption that it was not the same as mine. Is it?
I take it your God is not the one represented in this, and
Oh, he
thou will
is.
wave the Bible.
He is. Doesn't come in at the beginning. It's not in the beginning he made the darkness, is it? Comes in a little bit later. Something about a fallen angel. But that's unimportant.
Ah, it seems your knowledge of the Bible perhaps is letting you down, Mr. Gray. I believe the fallen angel came from Milton, not the Bible.
You've caught me. Never actually opened the thing. Pages are too blindingly white.
And yet, you do wear a cross at your neck. I had taken it. Perhaps incorrectly, I had assumed you wore the cross of St. Peter, but perhaps it is the inversion has another meaning.
If it has another meaning, it is not one done intentionally. The cross, and Daymond will undo the necklace and do the same parlor trick that was done earlier. He will insert the silver chain around the cross right way up and place it on his neck. And throughout the remainder of the conversation, it will slowly start rotating upside down. It does it of its own accord. Try as I might, I cannot wear it right way up. It is calling out to something, asking me to, I suppose, return somewhere that I do not know.
Return implying you have been there before, Mr. Grey.
Do you dream, Valentine?
From time to time.
As I do not. I have not in a very long time. Every evening. As Kemuel gets up to whatever it is they do with Hattie at night, as you sleep peacefully in your bed, as Maribel stands watch over a house left silent, I see the world as someone else wants me to see it. I do not dream of myself. I dream of futures that could be. They are dark and they are wicked. And I stand at each one, holding a simple torch, trying not to let that torch burn too brightly or extinguish. And one of these days I will fail. And I won't wake up because my soul will have burned out.
You fear that if you let the torch burn too brightly, it may attract unwanted attention.
I do not fear it. To fear it would be the unknown. I know it will attract unwanted attention.
These visions of the future are most interesting, Mr. Grey. Really, you should think to write some of them down. I have a number of books in my possession that contain similar visions, one might say.
You have books that detail the end of the world.
Many ends of many worlds.
It is just
Although
one end. Oh.
I do not believe they, in all cases, mean them literally. I think you speak of something less allegorical, Mr. Grey.
That I do, but nonetheless, I may take you up on that. See what someone else's bright future holds.
Conditions?
Leave return to the void. It's properly cleared.
I was thinking about weight of the shadows because we were kind of discussing Damon's visions of darkness and casting light upon them.
Go ahead and release it if you think you've Gotten through it, sure. All right. So, considering it was your vice, Daymond, you can either invite Val to ask you a question about your past or stumble upon a clue for one of the active threats, including the newest one, if you want.
I selfishly would like to have Val ask a question, but I think we need a clue. We are so far behind.
Ah, the pressure.
Daymond is a selfish man. I will invite you to ask a question.
Val turns to Daymond and says, "Tell me, Mr. Grey, you worship or revere at least Milton's fallen angel, but were you brought up in this church? Is that why you return here?"
Brought up in the literal sense. I was raised in an orphanage. The ways of daily prayer, grace before meals, confessing one's sins, the trappings of this house is what raised me, and I find comfort in the innocence of youth here. Do I say the words? Yes. Do I mean them? Not often. But saying them is a powerful enough memory.
Kemuel, you want an opportunity for a vulnerable move before next time?
I'm definitely going to need one at some point. Whether you think we ought to try that now or wait until next time, that's your call.
I mean, I'm good if we want to go over just by a few minutes, because it's like, since we have multiple people with multiple conditions, it's like I don't mind.
Okay.
I just know besides stars and wishes, I just have to do one thing before we end. So I mean, like, if we want to get like at least one, another condition out of the way, I'm perfectly fine.
Let's see who's got. Yeah, I wouldn't be up for a vulnerable move. Perhaps with Val, since they have 2 conditions remaining.
Yeah, go for it.
Sure. Would you want to set the scene?
I can. Meds, do you want to give me somebody to a dead person, a dying person, or should I just introduce one?
No, absolutely. I mean, like, if yeah, like I'll use like, one that was done in another game. It's terrible. But I think like maybe find yourselves as Val and Daymond return home, and Daymond has returned into the house. Maybe Kemuel, it's like, you are coming outside for some reason, and Val is still outside. I think perhaps maybe there is an old woman that has started to shuffle forward towards Hargrave House, sees you, and then has started to come forward. But then there's a runaway carriage that can't seem to control itself or what have you, but then unfortunately can't swerve out of the way fast enough and hits her, and she's too far gone. But she is in the street and she seems to see you in her state and seems to be reaching for you. Do you go to her? She's right there in front of Hargrave.
Yes, I think Kemuel would walk up swiftly and seeing that she's in such ill state, I think he'd hoist her up bodily. And they'd call out Valentine. Find a spot we might make her comfortable.
Val rushes over and they try to help lift this person. My goodness, Kemuel, what on earth do you think? Are they still living?
There's like a streak of blood by the corner of her mouth, and she's old, and she's looking with her deep set, wrinkled eyes just up at Kemuel and only at Kemuel, as she sort of says, garbled, like,
Please, don't leave. Please, stay. Stay.
And I think Kemuel just lowers themselves down to the stoop and gently caresses the woman's cheek and says to Valentine, she lives, I think, not for much longer.
Is there anything you can do?
Only this. And Kemuel will lean in close to the woman's ear and whisper something too quiet to be audible to anyone else. And then gently press their lips to her forehead and cradle her like a child as she expires.
you can see the life leaving her as her eyes glaze over and become lifeless, looking up, glassy, up at you, as she becomes a mere husk in your arms, but glad that you were there.
He is gone, Valentine. What do you suppose we ought to do?
Out of character, did the carriage that hit her stop?
No. There's a strange circumstance of the carriage was attached to a couple of horses. It was careening, and it kind of caromed off of her and hit her, and then just kept going, as if it didn't have a driver.
I should have stopped that damn carriage, Kemuel. Who could have been so thoughtless?
Life seems cheap sometimes in this city. Nothing you could have done, Valentine. Or rather, Is there anything you could have done that would have saved her? Surely not.
Saved her, no, but perhaps taken some exacted some punishment on that reckless wretch.
I suppose. What matters punishment, though, in the face of eternity? They all face their end in time.
That is certainly true. At least. You say life is cheap now. I think it was ever thus, Kemuel.
We think you're right about
at least
that.
most lives. And why some are priced higher than others, I confess I do not understand.
We appreciated your alterations to the basement, though perhaps something a little less noxious would have been better.
And I think Val gives a confused look and then tilts the head to the side and nods.
Nevertheless, we thank you.
What should we do for this poor woman now? I suppose I should summon a policeman, or perhaps we take our own carriage and take her to the mortuary. It's rather too late for a doctor's attention.
Yes, we are familiar with the mortician. Perhaps that would be best. It seems unlikely that the constabulary would be able to take any meaningful action in regard to the loss of this woman.
Yes, it's almost as if carriages should carry some identifying mark so that we could pass it on to the police and they could locate the owner. Nevertheless,
what a novel idea.
If you would permit me, Kemuel, I will accompany you to the mortician.
Please.
If you know the way, then please lead me.
We are ever happy to lead you, Valentine. Let us be away.
Conditions.
Well, I was making a bit of an unsubtle play for lost their way there by letting Kemuel lead me to the mortician.
Sounds good to me.
They pointedly avoided the mention of the constabulary, but I don't know that that successfully clears that condition. But I wonder if perhaps this whole conversation, the loss of this woman, the talk of the impermanence of mortal life might have cleared Sally's song.
Okay.
I think perhaps there are parallels drawn in Kemuel's mind between this woman and another woman that he knows well.
Okay. Take it. If you think it's enough of a corollary, sure. But I will say, before we head into stars and wishes, I'm going to say that as you two go to the morticians with the poor woman, with the poor corpse, the runaway carriage pounds down the street, heedless, until it's caught by just random passerby that, or like it slows down like on its own per se, and then like it's kind of taken into custody by like random passerbys, and then we kind of get like a little bit of a fade in from previous when there was someone in carriage livery seated up on the box as if they were going to handle the reins and also to drive the carriage. But then this same person was removed and then placed lovingly into a closet of similarly dressed people or puppets. We can see articulation at their joints. We can see places where strings could be attached to them. And then we go down the line as we see different faces, different people of all walks of life made in puppet form, from maids to carriage drivers to butlers to maids and highborn. And then finally, an articulated doll, so lifelike, somewhat real. One that looks quite similar to Daymond Gray. And a shadowy figure steps up to it, lovingly pats the lapels, pats its cheeks, and will put a hand on its shoulder, step up to it, and whisper into its ear, "Soon mio figlio." And we fade to black. Stars and wishes. Stars are things you liked about the session, gameplay, roleplay, each other. Wishes, what you'd like to see for next time.
I can go. Big star, Kemuel's mask. I loved. It poses so many questions. Not least of which, what makes him different from the Neanderthals? Is he the cause of their downfall? Is he, and what does he mean by we are singular and you are many? I don't know. There's so many curious directions that could go in. I have like a couple of things that jump to mind, but I'm really excited to see where that goes. Also, another thing, Kemuel did a great tie into the monochromatic men with the green color coming from the room. I really loved Mads' escalation of how it's worse for Kemuel when he was down in the basement. That was very inventive. And Kemuel's relationship with Hattie is just always, that's a delightful addition to the household. And yeah, that's probably going to turn tragic at some point, but it's very interesting to see how that's developing. And I almost feel like a wish might be that some of the others of us should have some scenes involving Hattie. What does Hattie make of Maribel? What does Hattie make of Daymond Gray? And I really enjoyed the moment where Mr. Grey provoked Kemuel again, and this time seemingly got away with it. That was interesting. And yeah, big appreciation for the two vulnerable scenes that were a lot of fun to play out. I think we hit on some fun little notes there.
I'd like to demand to know how Rob made it into my house and looked over my shoulder at my notes, because you said everything about Kemuel's masks that I have written down almost to a T. So to pivot to something else, Mark, I genuinely do not know how you pulled the Val's note from anywhere. That came both so out of left field in the moment, and yet looking back on it, it almost feels like Val set Kemuel up for this. And it was shocking, it was delightful, and it was incredible. A star to Rob for using your move to slip into time to avoid being waylaid, or to be waylaid, and then still get the investigative work done, was delightful. And it really fit the weird place that Val occupies in this slipping through time, that I don't really think that we've seen hints of it here and there, but I think this was the first time we really got to see Val be Val's kind of weird. And then Mads, a star for the way that night unfolded. The fact that we basically burned through the first three of the unseens without much of anything to do really put the King in Shadows in charge of this night phase. You made it so that as hunters, we did not have the ability to do anything unless the King in Shadows allowed it. And that really ratcheted up the danger of this threat, not just to London as a whole, but to us as individuals. And I loved it. As far as wishes go, I think I'd like to know either what question Val asks Kemuel or what other clue they get.
That completely slipped my mind. We need to do that, yeah.
Good, that wish gets answered real quick then.
Yeah, I have some stars for the various paint the scenes, which were plentiful and almost universally amazing. Jeremy, I loved the twist on the unseen being the people carrying their mode of transportation to the theater, and the audience in the King in Shadows, are the audience having the sock and buskin masks. The image of the Duchess in the sopping wet black ichor as she made her way on stage was so vivid to me. And then I'm always delighted to see these particularly vulnerable scenes, but any scene between Mr. Grey and Valentine. So that vulnerable move was just wonderful. I loved the detail of, I can't remember exactly how you worded it, but it was about like he had caught you out. The pages are too blindingly blindingly white to for you to have opened the book. Rob, I anytime that you say anything like, I'm tempted to try something here, I always get really excited because it usually means something very interesting is going to follow. And I think maybe my favorite image of the whole night was that one of the trophies was the smile of the Cheshire Cat. And I really enjoyed seeing how it makes sense, but to see it so vividly, how Valentine was so stricken by that sort of hit and run that they had witnessed. Mads, the servants of the mastermind are getting so creepy. It's really terrifying. And I absolutely love that you carried forward the carriage that had run down the woman into the sort of stinger of the mastermind. That was amazing. Just as a light. Wishes. I'm looking forward to seeing how these green shoots may continue to blossom.
Oh yes, there's going to be a lot of problems. This is Emerald Orchid is an interesting threat. This is the first time I've run it, so yeah, it's giving me a lot of fun. A lot of fun, a lot of feels. Oh boy. And we haven't even like really gotten into it yet, so it's going to be hilarious. And now I've compounded it with Spider Silk Seamstress, so even more hilarious. Yeah. All the stars, same as what you've already mentioned. Particularly happy with the way you all are pulling out your moves, like Val with the Amor Fati, and being in two places at once. That was brilliant. I was just like, oh, what are you gonna do? It's like I was gonna pull a night move, and then like you decided to turn on me, so you're able to do two separate things. Loved it, and like having like the failure was even better because then it just allowed me to just to see how bad could it be. It's bad. It's good. It's really bad. And then with Kemuel, I really love how the fact that Kemuel's already a plural, right? I mean, like, just kind of like, trying to spread their worship. I mean, it is very similar to this plant entity, this dark intelligence. But again, like the threat of the plant being able to do it better. It's just, that was just, I mean, just the reaction from Kemuel was beautiful. So, I mean, like, kudos to you, Mark, for giving that acceptance of like, oh yeah, that's much worse. So that was cool. And then yeah, I mean, like, some of your narrations, Jeremy, were awesome for Daymond, and for, of course, some of the paint the scenes. So that was awesome. And then the Spider Silk Seamstress, like how this is, deadly and fey, drained of all color. Yeah, that would be pretty fucking scary for sure. So thank you for introducing that to be definitely a threat. What else? Yeah, I mean, and then again, like as always, thank you guys for dealing with my bullshit. I was really wanting to get through like everything killer session, because I mean, like, going through dusk phase into night phase and making it very twisted, and then like wanting to include some of day phase before next time was going to be quite punchy, and I got everything I wanted to get done, and that was my wish for today, so that was good. For next time and for future, just again wanting to ramp things up a little bit more. I feel like I haven't been giving things hard enough. Like I need to really trigger a lot more masks, I feel like, because we are in, it doesn't feel like a lot, but I mean, I feel like we just need to see a lot more pressure through the threats. I guess now that we're finally into now we have directly 3 actual threats on the board, like what do you deal with next, what do you like, how do you deal with them all at once, that sort of thing. And the King in Shadows is like it's getting pressurized now because you only have 2 night phases left to deal with it before it starts getting locked in. So deal with it before it becomes a permanent thing to shadow over all of London. So that would be interesting to see as well, if that actually accidentally happens. Yeah, so we'll get Amanda back, and hopefully we're all hale and hearty for the next time, and see how much havoc you cause for the next session and for the future. All right, so thank you for staying over. I appreciate you all. Happy gaming for anything that you're doing this week, and I will see you all next time. Thanks a lot. Bye, guys.